Hey guys, welcome back to War Thunder, and welcome to German Close Air Support is Bad, Part 2. To start things off, we're in the Focke-Wulf 490 A5U12. I'm flying in realistic battles on Ruhr with my buddy Quetzalcoatl, and I've just realised why I don't play this game mode very often. Primarily because every single time we face American teams, they do one of two things, if not both. They ground pound and lose the match, or they sight climb to about 7k, realise that, well, nobody else is at 7k and their entire team is dead, then proceed to run for 5 minutes in a straight line until eventually committing into a head-on pass and crashing into you.
Free Golden Eagles for War Thunder. Download the app in the description below.
And here we are, the home turf, Advance of the Rhine. Based around the city of Cologne, this is an absolutely beautiful map. Those of you who ask me which my favourite maps in the games are, I do have a few answers, and this has to be one of them. I'm a huge fan of urban maps. I'm a fan of maps that don't have many... I'm not going to say abusable or exploitable. I'd rather use the term out of bounds. Like, there's not a lot of places where you can hide and wait for the ticket bleed to happen, aka what people do in air battles with planes climb into space. This is what you can do in ground forces by technically griefing the map by going outside the borders. Now, Advance of the Rhine does have a few of those spots. One of them would be directly to my left right now. A few others where, you know, like tiny tanks, like reserve tanks, can sort of go through some of the dirt mounds and then hide in buildings and whatnot. But obviously, when you have a plane option, when you have close air support in a matchmaker, you can always go and spot them very much easily. But if you're still stuck in a tank, you're going to be having a very, very bad time. Now, the Panther G is something that I don't see many people play around, and I really, really like this tank. It's just under the Panther, and it's a slight alternation from the other variants, the D, A, and F. Is it good? Is it bad? For me, it's generally average. I don't think it has anything special to offer. There's a few speed inconsistencies, I believe, when it comes to performance of the engine for the different Panthers. It gets the add-on armor. It gets a slightly different front mantlet design, and overall the same gun that the other Panthers do. Now, the way I'm going to play it is I'm going to play it as an aggressive side supporter, aka I'm doing the mid-run. I'm going down the middle of the map, sort of controlling two different flanks. This is double flanking, as I like to refer to it, is instead of just going around the side of the map, which is very time-consuming and not the most efficient tactic, I'm going down the middle of the map with my friend in the RE251, and I'm going to be spreading out a little bit. I'm trying to basically spot as many targets as possible. If any of you play World of Tanks, you probably refer to this as spotting. I'll refer to it as scouting. I don't really know what the different expressions are for those different games. And the first target I spot over there was a bit of a... like, I spotted a tank driving down the road. So all I do is I stop, I wait for him, and as soon as he passes, boom. There's our first kill, a Stützwagen 81, and we're dead. That's it. That's all we've done. I mean, great effectiveness, really, but we've done nothing. We've just pushed down the middle of an open road, gotten one kill, and that's it. Now, here's the options, right? We can spawn tank destroyers, we can spawn the Panther again, we can spawn an Ostwind, or I can spawn a fighter. Since the 4.7 Focke-Wulf is the bottom tier that we've got, it's going to cost very little, and of course, with the minimum cost, I now am the first person in the match to have a plane up. And this is what I find interesting about air battles and ground battles, when it comes to combined arms, is that close air support, whilst powerful, is extremely easy to get rid of. One way is obviously using SPA. They keep the enemy vehicles away from a certain dome structure that is where the SPA is located. The problem obviously is that the SPA has to be close to its teammates to be able to protect them. So example, if right now the enemy team has an SPA and I was in a bomber, they would have to be in the capture point to be able to protect the capture point. You can't really protect the capture point from your own spawn. And so this safety net that you have, where your teammates are and where the spawn is, becomes a little bit obsolete. You have to start moving around and starting to go and take certain risks so that you can actually protect. It's a nice tactic I like, a nice strategy approach to War Thunder's close air support. Now, one of the best ways to counter enemy planes is with a plane of your own. Now, of course, if I was to respawn in an attacker, if I had the option for one, I'm going to have a harder time, obviously. You know, if you have bombs on, you're heavier. If you got rockets on, you're heavier. You're producing drag. You can't turn as well. And if nothing else, we're flying a Focke-Wulf. The enemy is British. They're going to be spawning in Typhoons, Tempests, perhaps a few Spitfires. And a lot of people understand that these things are, oh my god, there's about 5 or 4 tanks in the capture point. So what do we do now? Well, essentially we're stuck. You see, at this point in time, if I was an attacker, I would be actually willing to help my team out. But I'm stuck in a plane. And when I say stuck in a plane, I mean I am in no way capable of actually helping my team out, except by, of course, continuing to do my work, which is to eliminate enemy aircraft. First target spotted, and at all times, and you're going to see this, every time I engage, every time I kill, every time before I kill an enemy plane, I always check where the enemy spawn is, see if any new aircraft is spawned in, because if I don't react in time, those rockets will reach my teammates, we'll never be able to get the capture point back. My intentions right now are just keeping the skies as clear as possible. First target of the day, we got the Spitfire FR, one of the most dangerous ones. I believe it could be actually a premium, not a problem though. Still, the team is strong. And they're strong because the enemy team went for a flank on the capture point. Our team went for the mid flank. If you just take a look at the map right there, look how many of our teammates are still alive. You see, the actions controlled early game by our team resulted in the enemy teammates not respawning, which means they have no SPA, they have half the players that we do, and all we have to do really now is just hold our lives. It's not even holding the objective at this point, it's just not dying and keeping alive. Another plane has spawned in, and a little bit of a tip, when you're engaging planes, don't fly straight through them. Go low. If I stick close to the ground, they can't spot me. If they can't spot me, they're not going to react. And if the enemy plane is not reacting, let's just say that the kill is going to take half of the work required. Now, identifying the enemy aircraft is also very useful. Right now, it's a Typhoon Mark 1B. He does actually spot me. He does fire, but I've got nose-mounted guns. He's got wing-mounted guns. The accuracy at that distance, unless he had a very high convergence, simply wouldn't have hit. And I still trade and I head on. Now, another plane is spawned in. I'm still in the vector of approach, which means I'm just going to pull straight up. In this case, it's another Spitfire. Looks like the same guy respawned in a clipped wing. He goes into a stall here, and this would have worked, but it doesn't, because the Focke-Wulf 490's stall speed is extremely nice. All we have to do is just follow him through the actual stall. He stalls out on top because it's a Spitfire. We're a Focke-Wulf, and that will be our third kill. We're aiming for the ace here. It's really not going to be a problem. Another plane spawned in, and this time we are actually in a disadvantage. We're in a stall, we're coming down, but you got to remember that we're flying a Focke-Wulf. And what a Focke-Wulf does to a Spitfire is that it reverses it, and it's not even a Spitfire this time round, it's a Hurricane. Probably one of the worst vehicles this person you've chosen, considering that they have to know that I've got a plane up. Simple reversal, get back on his 6, a little bit of piss poor aim, but it's only a Hurricane, there's only so much he can do. Now personally, before I spawn a plane in or decide to spawn a plane in, I like to check two things. First is the statistics, the leaderboards. If there's enemy players with a lot of kills, a lot of spawn points, you can tell that they're going to be likely spawning in a plane. Example, there's an enemy player with 4 kills, 1 assist, 1 capture point, and he's just been taken out. He is more likely to spawn a plane in than he is to spawn an SPA or a tank, and so you can assume and adapt to what's happening in the battlefield. But if you're not looking at the statistics, and you're ignoring the kill feed is everything in this game mode. If you're not aware of what's going on in the battlefield, you're going to be spawning into a match, you don't know what's going on. When you spawn a tank, you're spawning onto a battlefield. It's almost like 2 dimensions. When you spawn into a plane, you're spawning into an air battle that's also interacting with ground forces. It's almost like a 3rd dimension. And what's happening is that if you're spawning an attacker in a matchmaker where there's a, 1, 2, or in this case, 3 fighters waiting for you, your chances of actually even reaching the ground targets to try to deploy your rockets are slim to none. And what you've essentially done is you've spawned in a fighter that costs about 2 to 3 times the amount of an SPA or a tank, and you get taken out without doing any damage. That person can go straight back to hangar because there's nothing else that can respawn. And at this point, we've reached the point of no return. I call this a GG point, the good fight point. It happens when one team simply has too many tanks and too many tickets to be able to be outturned in the end, and this means that we've won the match. There's nothing they can do, albeit statistically, 4 players can pull the game in their favor, but it would require 2 out of 3 things, and that would also be superiority in the air, which is something they don't have. We have 2 SPA waiting, we have the capture point, and we have 3 planes up. What could have happened on the enemy team is that 7 players who died in medium tanks could have respawned, and yet they didn't. Those 7 players in SPA could have prevented some of our close air support from being effective, they could have tipped off me and my teammate in fighters' aims, and they could have prevented their teammates in close air support from being taken out. And the reason why this match was lost, for me, my honest opinion, is purely because the 7 players of the enemy team decided that they're not going to waste any more time in this match, which does in fact result in their complete and utter loss. The last plane spawns in. This is going to be our contributor for an ace match, which is something that I do always thrive for when it comes to flying fighters. In this case, I'm being a little bit more aggressive. You can see I've only got about 100 shells left. I don't mind being taken out, and the target we're fighting is a Tempest Mark V. This is passive aggression at its finest, really. When you've got a plane with, 4 kills under his belt, I can do more or less whatever I want here, so I figured I'd trade in a head-on. Not the smartest of ways to do it, but greedy for the kill. I wanted to get my ace match, and since the match is already over, in my eyes, I don't think it was a bad trade at all. And there you have it. That was 5 kills in a Focke-Wulf 90 A5U12 in 7 minutes and 20 seconds, which is approximately what it takes for an American P-51 pilot to finally realize that his team is dead when he's flying to about 7,500 meters in a normal air-realistic match. And this is what I've been doing with fighters in the meantime. Because essentially, whenever I had a problem with going through the skin grind, I found it to be not just twice as fast, but twice as effective and twice as fun to do it in this game mode than to do it in air battles. If you do want to have my full excuse, it really comes down to the fact that there's no usernames. They don't know who's in the aircraft. Besides the perhaps overwhelming orange wing that I've got on a few planes, nobody can really target me. And so there's this freedom of also these 1v1 duels. Very often you see that this 1v1 effect happens, and whilst this match maybe perhaps didn't really show it off, the joy of going into a match and being able to duel someone in a 1v1 aspect whilst the battle is going on as well, and not being focused by 5 players at the same time just because you have a name that resembles the same name of a YouTuber, it is a little bit more relaxing. I hope you enjoy the part 2 to this short series, and there will be a part 3 coming up shortly, probably the finest one of the bunch. But until then, take care and safe flying.